Welcome, everybody, to an episode of the New World Report with me, Arthur. Now, today I thought we could talk a little bit about one of our favorite wars that are going on today, Syria. Of course, when I mean favorite wars, I mean that in the sense of the Great Game and how Syria is such an important part of the Great Game these days. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the term Great Game, it's an old term that's been used for this battle in geopolitics about who has the most influence in the most important parts of the world. And the Middle East right now is definitely one of these important parts for security reasons. You know, U.S. has a lot of bases, for energy reasons, which we'll get into later. Now, I wanted to start off and talk about some recent events that have pretty much have a lot of relation to what's going on right now. Like, you know, the U.S. threats, just I think it was yesterday, about from the press secretary, which were weird threats against Syria because the Pentagon and the State Department were, quote, clueless on the allegations. They pretty much told the U.S., the American people, that they have threatened Syria. Now, I'm not so sure how real this threat was, but they said that they had threatened Syria that if they use chemical weapons again in this area, as we will go into more strategic analysis a little bit later, but they said that they would attack Bashar if he did that. Now, what is the reason for this sudden threat? Does it even make sense that Bashar would do such a thing? Maybe this is not even strategically good for him to do. That's a question we should ask, in which really it isn't right now. Bashar is winning. If you can see, this is the red. He's isolated the green, which is the rebels. And they've also isolated ISIS. Now, like I said, I'll get into the strategical analysis later. Some other events that are kind of recent are the Qatar split between the GCC and Qatar, led by Saudi Arabia, which they kicked Qatar to the curb. As you can see, Qatar right now is put on this other alliance. This is a infograph, I guess you could call it, that I've made to help explain Syria a little bit. Everybody says Syria is so complicated. Everybody says Syria is so it's hard to understand. You can't understand it. I just want to. That's all bull. You could totally understand Syria. You just have to know some things, and of course, I'm very interested in this kind of thing. We here at the New World Report love geopolitics. I also have a background in science, and that's why I also talk about technology and cryptocurrencies. But the majority of my focus is geopolitics, and that's where I've put my education and, you could say, career time. Now, here in this graph, you can see that there's three sides. This is a new kind of unfolding of events. Qatar and Turkey are under something that I would call the Muslim Brotherhood Alliance. Now, that's a term that I call it. Some people would say differently, but this is pretty much why Qatar joined, and that's what they have in common. Qatar and Turkey both support the Muslim Brotherhood across the different states, like Egypt. They supported Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood guy, instead of Sisi, the guy that's in power right now. The guy that's kind of like Mubarak. And Qatar. Well, here, let's get into Qatar. Qatar was kicked to the side, to Turkey's side, after they gave the Qatari prince. This is a list of demands given to the Qatari prince by Saudi Arabia. I'll have it right here. And you can see this list. It's kind of a ridiculous list. It pretty much says, bend over. These Saudi demands, even known, Secretary Tillerson has said they're kind of ridiculous because Qatar is definitely not going to accept these demands. But which has made Qatar move to Turkey's side. Some of these demands are as follows. Wow, I guess this file is not working. Let me try that one more time. And if it doesn't work, it's okay, because well, all right, never mind. It doesn't matter. Well, the demands are 13 of them. I'm not going to name you all 13 of them, but they pretty much like I said, tell Qatar to bend over in terms of foreign policy and even domestic policy. Tell them who they can support, what kind of actions they can take, and what kind of friends they can have. They said you have to kick Turkish troops. Now, Turkey has troops in Qatar. It's like Turkey just passed a law in their quote unquote parliament that they just sent more troops in last week. Now, Saudi Arabia says you got to stop that and you got to send them all back. They say that you got to stop Al Jazeera. If anybody knows anything about Qatar, they realize that Qatar is pretty much a family that owns a news channel, a very rich family that owns a news channel. That's pretty much the whole country. I mean, no offense as a joke, but Al Jazeera is probably their biggest foreign policy asset in the way that they can push their, they punch much higher than their weight in that aspect. Now, they supported, like I said, they supported Morsi over Sisi. That's why Egypt supports this, kicking Qatar to the curb. Qatar also is a little friendly with Iran, maybe, and also has ties with Hamas, which is another Muslim Brotherhood organization. And that's why Israel was pretty okay with this whole situation. If you think about it, as you see, Israel is not connected via a line. I didn't connect them because they're not officially a part of this alliance. But as we have seen in the news, and some of the things that they've even themselves, Israelis are not known for disclosing anything, even known facts like their nuclear weapons program. That's all. Nobody talks about it. It's like they don't have it, right? But on this, they even disclosed this, that, hey, yeah, they have been helping some rebels. And what we all know, that they have not been helping anybody from this side. And they've only been helping people from this side, and people who've been supported, rebels who've been supported by the international coalition. Now, this movement of Qatar and Turkey to the other side into another little alliance was also because Turkey was backed into a corner. Turkey was backed into a corner because, they got into this saying, one of the first ones who got into this whole trying to get Bashar out of Syria. But now look at them. All they care about right now is Kurds. After this whole situation has been unfolding for the past 5 years, the Kurds have grown in power and land, and now have a very realistic chance of having an autonomous region called Western Kurdistan by themselves, or even a Rojava, as they might call it, connection of northern Syria, across northern Syria to the KRG section of Iraq, which would be right in this area. Let me pull up this map. This is where the Kurds have, right? So let me get further into this map. The Kurds, I'll explain this map a little bit later about all these little different circles and whatnot, but the Kurds are the yellow guys, right? And the split that has formed in the rebels are the green guys, and the split that has formed in the rebels is mostly up here. They're fighting over this area, the rebels supported by Turkey and Qatar on one side versus the rebels supported by Saudi Arabia and the U.S. on the other side. These areas are just funded by the quote unquote allies, the coalition allies. Well, this one is all supported by Turkey. They even have brought troops in, while this group is split, and there's recently been some assassinations of rebel leaders. These two different sides are battling control over who has more influence over the rebels, who are also trying to get into Syria. Now, we haven't talked about this other group, and which is the Resistance Alliance, Iran, Iraq, Syrian government, also backed by Russia now. But this is all very geopolitical, folks. Very geography oriented. That's why it's geopolitics. Syria is the center of this battlefield because of the place they're in geographically. They're right in the center. This has to do with, some would say pipelines, right? This is the pipeline map of, they used to want to go through Iran and go through Iraq. That axis that you see right here is this axis that you see right here can move through this pipeline, and this benefits that axis, while this pipeline would benefit this original axis with Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, all of them benefiting from this red one. That's why they first, some people would say that's why they first supported the ousting of Assad. And I'm going to go into another video into all the different things that the different sides really want and what are looking for right now. Turkey, Saudi, Jordan, the different Arab states around the Persian Gulf, Iran, the U.S., Israel, Russia, Iraq, Kurds, Hezbollah and the rebels. We're going to get into all that in probably the next video here. But I just wanted to give you guys a little update that these new events that are going on are very related. And this new threat that the U.S. has done against Syria is very much related to this new gains by the Syrian government. You see this red, it's been connected. Now we'll get into this strategic analysis, like I said, in the next video. But I just wanted to throw this out there. Thanks for listening. And, give me a comment. Hit the like button if you like it. And let me know how you feel. Thank you.